Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast, where we interview experts in driver recruiting. We provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to help you level up your recruiting game. Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Craddock, and today we have Deborah G on with CAG Canada. We're super excited to have her on the show. She came recommended from some different people in women in trucking that met with Ginger and threw out her name. And so we're excited to have her on the show, and I'm excited to dive into some different topics with her. So she's been in the industry over 20 years, and part of that was actually as a driver, went into a driver job about 20 years ago, and then transitioned into multiple other roles, and then now is in an HR role at CAG Canada. So thanks for being on the show today, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
So first, I want to dive right into it in what got you into trucking? What got you into trucking?
I was in an office job that I did not enjoy, and I was commuting quite a long way per day. And at that time, you were allowed to have CVs in your vehicles. So I was talking to drivers as I was going down the road, asking them about their day and what their career was like. And I said, can girls do this? And they said, well, we can, but I don't know why you would want to. And I said, well, I really think I want to because I'm not very happy in my job. So I continued on with that for still quite some time. And then my mom was suffering from mental health issues, and she ended up committing suicide. And that was a great motivator to not be stuck in a place where you're not happy. Whatever you have to give up and change to move on with your life from the place where you're not happy, it has to be done. It was a great motivator. Obviously a terrible, terrible time and took a lot of time to recover, but well worth the lessons learned in life.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss of your mom. And I know, I think it's important that we, talk about hard subjects like that, just because I've been through seasons of, depression, anxiety. I mean, not diagnosed, but just different hard seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with suicide and things like that, I think just communicating, I've had several people reach out to me that have been struggling with different thoughts at different times. And that's the biggest thing is we're all struggling with different types of things. But when you share a struggle, it just, takes away some of the power of it. And so,
yes, absolutely.
So I appreciate you being vulnerable and bringing that up. And so how old were you when that happened? And then versus what's the timeline, her committing suicide versus when you started?
It was my early 20s. So yeah, quite young really to lose a parent like that. It was a shock, as it is often to the family. You don't understand. You understand what they're going through. You see it every day, but you don't necessarily understand what the consequences of their thought process is. But I was able to start crossing the border and get my license when I was 21. So that's as soon as I hit the 21 mark, that's when I started making a move towards that career goal.
Mm-hmm. So that was close. So it was around the same time. And so when I was reading through the notes, getting ready for this call, one of the things was you had to make some life changes to get in the truck and do that. Can you walk through some of those things that you did?
I had a really swanky apartment. Absolutely adored it. It was glorious. Right overlooking a park. I felt like I was living in New York. It was just gorgeous. And I had a cute little pet that I had to rehome because of the situation. I went from that lovely apartment down to a 1-bedroom apartment in a basement in somebody's home just to control my expenses because I knew it was going to be hard times. So there's a huge transition when you're going from a full-time income to getting your license, and the in-between time when you get your license and you're getting that experience is also a financial hardship. It is a long-lasting internship that you need to complete, and financially it is a bit of a struggle.
Mm-hmm. So you had, so that's a lot of change. So you had to rehome your pet, change from nice apartment to 1-bedroom. What, again, I think people listening will be like, why would you do that? Why would you make that switch?
Well, I was single. There was nobody to support me, and Obviously, there was going to be some financial strife in between the internship. So I knew that I wouldn't be able to afford the lifestyle I had while I was learning the position, even though I did have, as long as I was successful through the training program, employment secured. But a lot of companies will pay a newer driver less because it costs to train them, and we understand that. But it was less than half the income that I was earning at the time. So yeah, definitely had to make some adjustments and quickly to be able to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And would you say it's still that challenging for drivers getting into it nowadays? Like
Unfortunately, yeah, I do. Yeah, there's a big gap in the industry between getting the license, which I think there's quite a bit of support in Canada, especially we've got grant programs and different groups that put together assistance for people to get their license. But the in between training and being a tenured driver, having that 1 or 2 years of experience as a bare minimum is super hard on the individual.
So next question I had is specifically around like what different things do you, whether it's like reading or listen to or participate in, to kind of learn and continue just on the growth journey?
For transition in my career, or just to as continuing education in this career?
I would say honestly, we could go either direction. So like, just what are you learning? How are you growing? And it can be career or personally.
When I decided I wanted to get out of the truck and get into an office again, my main goal was dispatch. So I ended up going back to school and learning. I went through the Canadian Institute of Traffic and Technology to get my certification, and ended up being on the logistics side of things, and grew my career that way. Stepping out of the truck was a hard decision and a big decision, and it was just more about growing as an individual than necessarily giving up the trucking life, because it was really good to me. I quite enjoyed it, and eventually fell into recruiting. But I volunteer is basically, I think networking is the strongest tool we have, each other and learning from each other, and continuing hard conversations about the industry and about people and how to take care of them. So I volunteer with the Women's Trucking Federation of Canada. That's my main focus right now for my volunteer work, and it's a great network of individuals who love trucking and want to get more people involved and want to keep them safe.
So what all causes does like the Women in Trucking Federation in Canada kind of focus on that they support or raise awareness for?
Our main focus right now is safety, both safety as a driver out on the road, so personal awareness, situational awareness, courses along those lines. We're also really educating people on human trafficking, how to manage it should you run into a situation where you feel that that's an issue, or how to educate people who are in that situation on how to change their circumstances. And in general, just raising awareness to make it more comfortable for people to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you familiar with Truckers Against Trafficking?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely working in conjunction and following some of their information sessions. Definitely they're having a big impact on it as well.
Awesome. We actually had Michael Larson on the podcast a few episodes ago. So it was fun, hearing more about it. And I say fun. I mean, it was actually a hard conversation, just
Very hard. It is.
knowing what all's going on and the reality to it. And, and I even asked him to share just some hard stories. And, but the more we can be aware of like the things going on around us that we may just not be paying attention to, then maybe next time we'll notice and might be able to, help somebody. Cause it's just awareness and noticing your surroundings and what's going on, and just, asking questions when things seem off, or reporting it. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I have to say, looking back, I would have been in several situations where I could have made a difference or said something. I didn't know how, and I really wasn't aware of what the situation was. It's when you grow up and you have hindsight and you see things that you recall and go, oh, I should have done something, or I could have done something. But you know better and you do better. And going forward, obviously, I can make an impact. But that education and that awareness is definitely helpful. I've learned a lot as I've been helping the group and learning with them.
That's awesome. What got you into that?
Women's Trucking Federation in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I met with Shelley, and again, networking. I love getting together with groups of people who like talk trucking because I can do that all day. But she was a driver, and we ended up talking. She says, I'd really like to start up like a Canadian Women's Trucking Federation. I'm like, that's a great idea. I said, it's a lot of work if you're up for it. And she says, I'm up for it. And she was still driving at the time. And she just started talking to people and gaining interest and getting a bunch of women that have been in the industry for a long time. And that's in the office and behind the wheel. We have a great group of women and men that are willing to contribute to the progression of information systems and bring up topics that we need to address or try to bring forward to the government and lobby them for changes or more attention in certain areas, like that gap between getting your license and being a tenured driver.
Mm-hmm. Do you see more women getting into the industry, like as driving, like since just even looking back over the last couple of decades?
With the progression of the trucks themselves, I think that more women are willing to look at this as a career, and there's a lot more careers available as far as being a driver. So you don't necessarily have to be that highway cowboy type situation. You can actually be home every couple of days or more. It makes it more comfortable and more accessible for women to be in the industry. So I do see more women coming through or asking questions about it. I think there's still a little bit of a fear of it being a male-dominated industry, but most of my coworkers were very supportive, and all they want to do is share their information and their stories. So it doesn't need to be intimidating, and that's why the Women's Trucking Federation is there, just to say, yes, you can do this, and this is what you need to do to get where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been impressed just with all the women across the industry in all different roles, and I think it's, I've seen just even the 14 years I've been in the industry, just more and more women in leadership positions, and I think in my generation, at least I wasn't raised with like any stigma towards a woman doing a certain job in the industry versus a man, and so I've had a lot of counterparts in leadership that have been better in me in a lot of areas, and just I think we should continue to promote more women in leadership. And that's one thing Ginger is really, really passionate about that met with you, is like expanding the mountaintop, and it's not even just the way she communicated the messaging to me too, is it's not even just women in leadership. It's everyone in leadership. Like, how do we just promote and do things in community? That's why when you talk about like doing like these different associations and just talking trucking with people, and it's just so important to do life in community and share ideas and grow from one another. Like, we don't have to do this alone, but you have to be intentional about that though. And so seek out those groups and put yourself out there, and it just takes time, like, to build the relationships and things like that.
We have several women that do the ice roads every year. So Northwest Territories up there on the ice, and we have ice roads in Manitoba and Saskatchewan as well. And I get so excited just to like realize everybody's excited to head up and do the winter roads, because it's a big deal and a huge part of our northern economy in Canada. So everybody is behind it 100%. But when I see women in the trucks going up there, and some of them have been doing it for a long, long time, they're just super supportive of their co-drivers and their co-workers, and making sure that everybody knows what they need to do to stay safe, and just exemplary co-workers to be with. But I'm uber jealous that they're up there and I'm not.
So have you ever done the ice road? Did you ever?
No. Like I say, so jealous. And the photos that we collect, we ask drivers to send photos in all the time when they're out and about. But in particular with the ice roads, the photos are just so unique and so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was, I went to like back when they had the Great American Trucking Show in Dallas every year. One of the years I met one of the guys that was on the show, Ice Road Truckers.
Oh yeah,
and then ended up I was able to go out with him afterwards, and we went bowling and
that's fun.
Yeah, and honestly, I got to talk to him over an hour and just ask questions about what it's like, and yeah, and I was amazed that it's like is as dangerous as the show makes it out to be. Like that there are a lot of dangers, and then things get scary at times, and then also it can be really profitable for some of those drivers. But yeah, I'm just fascinated. I used to watch that show religiously. Like I just think it's so cool.
It is cool.
And just the fact, like you're on ice and you could literally your truck could fall through, and
they've changed a lot. They've got ground radar that they check the thickness of the ice, so there's no real danger anymore of going through the ice. When they first started up, it was definitely a risk. They have speed limits, they have people monitoring everything, so they're now very confident in the safety of those roads. Like nobody goes over 25 kilometers an hour, which is quite painful when you're doing 600 kilometers round trip, but it is definitely a very safe environment, but it's still a harsh environment. It's still very, very cold. Your equipment is suffering. If you're outside, you're suffering. And it's just different circumstances for sure.
So it's a safe environment, but just more of a harsh environment now.
Yeah, and it's safe. Like a lot of things that we do in trucking, they're safe as long as you follow the procedures and the rules that are set in place, and you know what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be. And you ask questions when you don't know, and a lot of those circumstances will definitely keep you in line and home safe.
Do they, like with some of that, like improvement and monitoring and things like that, do they shut down the roads for longer periods of time?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's in a convoy. So there's two people on the front and the back of that line that are 10-year drivers that have been up there for a year or two. And then the people that are newer to the road will be in the middle, and no one is left behind if there's any sort of issue.
That's so cool. And so how many drivers do you guys have across Canada, like with CAG Canada?
850.
850.
Yep.
And then are you involved in the US side at all, or just the Canada side?
We obviously talk to our counterparts in the US, but as far as recruitment, the rules are much different between the US and Canada. So we generally just will share ideas and marketing ideas and things like that. But for the most part, we're fairly separate.
That's awesome. So kind of going into, you mentioned marketing ideas, like what's working right now in terms of like marketing, or what are you guys doing currently?
We do a lot of seasonal hauls. So again, the winter roads is one. We also have helping the farmers by providing fertilizer. Those are seasons that we will advertise socially, like on Facebook and Instagram, those type of things. But we use marketing on those social platforms more to keep engagement with our current employees. We have a couple of employee groups where you can complain or praise different situations, but we just want to keep in touch and see what your like family celebration was, and pictures on the road, and when you get your truck washed and you're feeling fancy, send us a photo. Engagement and retention really does help. It makes us feel closer to our drivers when we're in the office and we're not out there beside them every day. And they're proud. They're proud of what they do, so they get to show that off. But as far as marketing in general, being out in the community and truck shows, anything you can do to be out there as an employee and a representative of your company to just be part of what's going on in the rest of the world.
So what are you excited about in the trucking industry just going forward?
Well, there's so much. One thing I love about this industry is it's never stagnant. There's always something new coming up. There's different types of vehicles or different styles of vehicles and trailers and new safety engagement and legislation that you have to comply with. Compared to where it was 20 years ago, drivers have a much safer work environment than they used to, and I absolutely love that. There's no reason to ever be bored in this industry. So I get excited about pretty much every new thing that pops up. I really love the respect and the attention that drivers are getting these days as far as being honored for what they do, for the sacrifices they make, for the effort they put in day after day, and all the rules and regulations that they follow to keep everybody else safe on the roads.
So what's kind of changed in the industry, like for drivers to be like more respected and kind of noticed now? Because you kind of mentioned that
I
is
think
something
some
you
of it
see.
has to do with media, like you were mentioning TV shows with regards to when I was a kid, it was BJ and the Bear. I don't know if you're probably too young
Yeah.
to remember that one, but that was my first crush in the world. And I think COVID also drew a lot of attention when people saw empty shelves in stores to say that these people were still working through it and doing what they could to keep everybody supplied and their homes full of whatever they needed to have.
Yeah, if I tried to pinpoint it, I would kind of say the same thing. Like I feel like just since COVID, there's been more awareness of getting the things that we need, and yeah, just media promoting that, because you really don't realize how critical an industry is until there's disruption, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
and since there's been that disruption, I think there's more of a focus, and then there's new things we have to do to, like with litigation increasing in the industry and just costs going up in so many different areas. Like it's definitely an industry. The reason I like the industry so much is just that it is challenging and ever moving, to your point.
Yeah.
And before this, I got into this industry, I'd changed jobs like it was like I was in a job a year and then moved to another one for a year. But now I feel like I've had 14 different jobs being in the industry 14 years, because even though I was in the same role for some of those years, just because it's changed. And then I'm dealing with like kind of a double dynamic of transportation changing, and then all the cycles, but then recruitment, marketing changing, and just marketing trends. Because, what works today may not work 6 months from now, and at least as well as it was. And so, I just love the challenge of it.
Yeah, and I think recruitment has changed quite a bit. It used to be all about speed, getting the driver in the seat as soon as possible. And the challenge was to do that with all the safety regulations in mind and completed before that driver was in the seat. And I think people, especially in the last few years, have changed their mindset to that speed, both on the driver's side and on the recruitment side, to take a bit of time, talk to people about what they want. Is this right for your lifestyle? If you have family, is that right for them as well? Have you talked to them? There's a lot more communication that's done in the front door to express and be very transparent about who you are as a company and what the position entails, so that people are happy and they're going to stay. Like, it's very stressful on people to change jobs, and they don't really want to do it. And everybody talks about, industry talks about people, drivers in particular, being finicky and moving on for an extra 25 cents here or there. And I don't believe that that's the overall trend churn wise. As you gain more experience, you might want to try something different. But I think that the tendency for longevity, that couple of years in the same seat, is increasing overall.
Just with that extra communication on the front end.
Value added, absolutely. And just making sure that the person is the right, and don't be afraid to say no on either side, because it's not what you want. Yeah, dollars and cents matter to everybody. There's no doubt about it, but there's not a huge difference unless you're going into a specialty market.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that Ginger had asked, that you touched on, like brought out, that you were asked if you wanted to get into recruiting, and you said no initially because you're brash and too direct. And I may be getting the exact wording incorrect, but how have you, how has that helped you, like being really direct in recruiting, and then how have you kind of continued to grow in that area?
That's a great question. Honestly, I didn't expect it to help me when I first got into it, but it really has. Being, again, that transparency, and that's, I guess, what I really mean when I say I'm being honest. And I tell people the good and the bad parts of any job that we have available. Or if they want this career, what's the good and the bad? I think it's important that you tell people what their worst day is going to look like, because we all have them. And that's very difficult to get through. Also, the stress of when you're learning. Be patient with yourself, take things slow, And these are the challenges you're going to have. You're going to be sore. Like there's some labor involved with these positions. So even as a driver, if you're in the seat for your first 8 hours, you're going to be sore. You got to pull over and stop and get out every once in a while. But I really enjoy also this industry overall tends to be full of people like me. And I don't think I necessarily knew that from the office side of things. Very dynamic group, again, smart people who have opinions and strong ones and definitely are not afraid to voice them. And it is just so much fun. Absolutely love it.
Today's sponsor. Do you hire truck drivers in hard to fill areas, or do you need help creating efficiency in your recruiting department? You're not alone. With 50 plus years experience, Trucking Clicks specializes in data-driven strategies, industry-leading customer experience, and custom solutions that'll get you to your goal. Trucking Clicks is your go-to place for high-quality, direct leads at scale. Visit truckingclicks.com or call 512-982-0816 today. So what events do you go to in Canada? Like you mentioned, like some different trucking shows.
Yeah.
Is it just on your side of the border, or do you also come stateside too?
We generally allow our U.S. counterparts to go to the U.S. truck shows, and there's a lot of community truck shows like show and shines and family events, or like we have an event in a couple of provinces here. It's called Touch a Truck event, and it is geared towards kids and families, and basically a bunch of people who have trucks of all sorts, tow trucks, fire engines, our tanker trucks, all get together, and kids just climb anywhere and all over these vehicles for a day. It is an absolute hoot. They lose their minds. Like it is a day of wearing earplugs because the horns are just going 100% all day. But those type of events in your community, they usually are held for a sponsorship, so it's donation to get in and go to a good cause to help everything local. But also you get to see the kids just absolutely having a hoot climbing inside the vehicles.
Mm-hmm. So what was that one called?
Touch a Truck.
Touch a Truck.
Mm-hmm. There's one in Brandon, Manitoba, and then there's one in Edmonton here too. But I'm hoping it catches on in other locations because it really does bring some joy into your day.
Yeah, so I have a 4-year-old, like he just turned 4, and then a 14-month-old, 2 boys. And I was just thinking my 4-year-old would love that.
Right.
And he hasn't been in a big rig yet, or semi truck or 18-wheeler. And so yeah, but he has sat in a fire truck. There was like a new fire truck at a big gas station chain here, and then he met the guy and got to sit up in the truck. But yeah, he's just I don't think it's just because I'm in the industry and I bring trucks home and stuff. I think just kids are just naturally drawn to like big vehicles. And
but you never get to be close to them. Like if you're not in the industry, you don't actually know what it looks like inside of a truck. And this is an opportunity to see that. It's an opportunity for these companies to show off their vehicles because they spend a lot of money and a lot of time around them. So a little pride in your ride is not a bad thing at all. And boom trucks and tow trucks and all of those are just absolutely fascinating. It's a great day.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I'm going to have to make that happen, and I'm going to see if there's some.
That'd be great.
Some in the U.S. too. Thank you for your time today, Deborah. Have a great week.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Our goal with the Hire Truckers podcast is to provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to help you level up your recruiting game. Thank you for joining us today. And if we added value, please take 10 seconds to share this with your network.